For those who have come for the first time, just a quick recap on the schedule for the rest of the day. The schedule looks like between 5 and 6 now we'll have a Saturday feast class, so we'll go through one of the verse from Bhagavad-gītā. And then the class will be followed by a japa session actually by Vishnu Observer. So my humble request to you to continue to stay here. It's a very blissful experience. And then we'll have a prayāti upstairs, Saturday's feast for today's different downstairs. Okay. Sorry about that. Thanks for coming. So we'll have a prayāti outside the fish pond. And then the session goes by 6:30. And we'll make sure everybody come back by the 6:45 because we'll have a yāti. And between 6:45 and 7 o'clock, we'll have a yāti while the darshans are closed and the darshan reopens at 7 o'clock. So make sure everybody is here, and then from 7 o'clock once the darshan is open, we'll have the Karmā. So we'll start today's class with a short brief, and then we'll try to finish the class on time so that we can open up the class for any question and answer or any corrections for the japa. So the translation by his divine grace, the intricacies of the action are very hard to understand. Therefore, one should know properly what action is, what forbidden action is, and what inaction is. So the purport was by If one is serious about the liberation from material bondage, one has to understand the distinction between the action, inaction, and unauthorized actions. One has to apply oneself to such an analysis of action, reaction, and perverted actions, because it is very difficult subject matter to understand Krishna consciousness and action according to its modes. One has to learn one's relationship with the Supreme. So one who has learned it perfectly knows that every living entity is an eternal servitor of the Lord, and that consequently one has to act in a Krishna consciousness. The entire Bhagavad Gita is directed towards this conclusion. Any other conclusions against this consciousness and its attendant actions are Vīkarmā, or prohibited actions. To understand all this, one has to associate with the authorities in Krishna consciousness and learn the secret from them. This is as good as learning from the Lord directly. Otherwise, even the most intelligent persons will be bewildered. Quickly read the translation, and can I request everyone to just repeat after me? The intricacies of action are very hard to understand. Therefore, one should know properly what action is, what forbidden action is, and what inaction is. Thank you very much. So basically, to start with the class, Krishna is a very beautiful chapter, Transcendental Knowledge, where Krishna begins. In the previous chapter, the name of the chapter was the Karmā Yoga, where the different types of the yogas, with a specific focus on the yoga ladder. So we won't go in detail because I'll stick to the verse. So basically, what happens is Krishna tells there are different, like we have what we call anta-kāle, basically in English we call self-realization. So before we have a self-realization is step one towards the God realization. So the process between the self-realization and God realization is basically called yoga ladder. And Krishna in chapter 3 in Karmā Yoga mentioned 3 rungs of a ladder. So like we have a ladder and there are different steps, what we call rungs. So in that chapter 3, he talks about basically the lowest rung of the ladder, or the first rung of the ladder is basically called Karmā Yoga, and the second rung is the Jnana Yoga, and the topmost rung is called Bhakti Yoga. However, just to give a context, so basically yoga, the word yoga, I mean, probably is one of the most exploited words in these words, because everybody is coming up with their own definitions. Every now and then we hear all kind of nonsense like the beer yoga and the steam yoga and all kind of yogas. But then again, if we go back to the Shastras, the word yoga is a Sanskrit word that has come from the root word yud, which actually means connect. So yoga in a very simple terms basically means anything which connects us to the higher self. If we don't believe very initially in higher self, but then again, from our culture actually it means basically Bhagwan. So anything that connects to Bhagwan is basically called yoga. So speaking in context of the yoga ladder, so like I said, we have Karmā Yoga. So Karmā is basically activity. So Karmā Yoga basically means is trying to get connected, try to move closer to the God, or to the Bhagwan, the Shira Radha, through the activities, because everybody in this world has a different tendencies. So somebody is very keen on doing the physical work, somebody is very keen or inclined on, or have a very high intellect, so they are more probably into the analysis and study. So accordingly, so Karmā Yoga, like I mentioned, is a process where we try to, or we endeavor, or a practitioner endeavors to get connected to the God through activities. Now, once we have gone through that stage, the next stage is basically the Jnana Yoga. So Jnana, in simple language, means knowledge. So in this stage, the practitioner tries to connect with the Lord through the knowledge. So, like I mentioned, people have different tendencies. Some people speculate. Some people they don't believe the things unless they have gone through the analysis, or they have heard through the analysis, or they have gone through the different and our analytic books. They've gone through the different scriptures, they have spoken, they have had a discussion with other authorities. So unless they've gone through those intensive studies and acquire the knowledge, it's hard for them to absorb the fact, the God, the person, and the nature of the God. So that's basically, in a nutshell, it's called Jnana Yoga, and the last yoga is basically, the last stage is, the highest stage is called Bhakti Yoga. So in very simple language, Bhakti is basically devotional service. So by this, and it's the most simplest process, especially in the age of Kali Yoga. In this stage, basically the practitioner tries to connect with the Lord through devotional services. There are various stages. We're going to discuss about that, but then again, this is the context for today's class. Now, like I mentioned, between self-realization, between Atma Sakshatkar and a Bhagavad Sakshatkar, basically means between a self-realization and God realization, so this is a yoga ladder. But again, there are certain qualifications, there are certain processes, and then there is a certain period of evolution, probably I would say, where one actually literally starts on the Karmā yoga. It's not that straightforward. And Krishna actually is already mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, Manushyanam sahasreshu kasyat yati siddhare, Rama siddhanam kasyamam yati tatvata. So basically what does it mean is, Manushyanam, amongst the human beings, basically amongst the word Manushyanam sahasreshu, just in Sanskrit means 1,000. But we should be taking the word sahasra, 1,000 in a literal context. It's basically one of the reference that has been mentioned. And again, another context from one of the acharyas is because this Bhagavad Gita, Krishna spoke at the end of the Dwapara Yoga, which is the previous Yoga. So basically, the degradation actually has happened 1,000 times. So if anything, if anything happened in the previous Yuga and the things have degraded 1,000 times, so basically what does it mean is the thing in Kali Yuga will be 1,000 times of the previous stage. So in simple word is 1,000 sahas ratio of the 1,000 is 1 million. And this word where the different acharyas have translated this word. So what does it mean is, out of thousands, basically millions and millions, out of millions and millions people, one may endeavor for perfection. When we say perfection, what does it mean? Perfection means one may endeavor for self-realization. One may be interested in actually knowing who am I, basically. The very first lesson basically Krishna spoke to Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita is the basic foundation. You need to understand, before you understand the God, first of all you need to understand who are we. So and that process is basically about self-realization. So basically what is being said in this verse is, out of billions and billions of people, one may endeavor for self-realization. And of those, of those who have achieved or who have attained to this process, hardly one knows the truth. So basically millions and millions, 1%, and out of those persons who are interested in the self-realization, hardly one would be interested in further knowing and moving on to the next stage from self-realization to the God realization. And that is again basically goes back to the context. So before the practitioner even starts moving on to the different ladders, different rungs of a yoga ladder, they have to perform certain activities, and it's very, very important, which basically this verse is talking about. Now, in this verse that we mentioned, the intricacies of the action are very hard to understand, and then further Krishna says there are 3 types of actions. So in this verse, Krishna is speaking about the two different things, and I've basically segregated the class into the 2 different sections to highlight what Krishna is saying. So in the first part, basically Krishna says the intricacies of the actions are very difficult. I mean, why is Krishna saying this? Why is it difficult to understand the intricacies or basically complexities of the action? Why is that? So to understand this point, I'll narrate a story from Mahabharata. So what actually happens is, I'm sure everybody must have known, there was a war, there was a battle of Kurukshetra between Pandavas and Kauravas, and at the end of the war, pretty much everybody present on the battlefield, everybody, on both the sides, everybody died except the 5 people, which is the Pandavas. So once the war was finished, so Krishna took Pandavas to Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra basically was the father of, Dhritarashtra was the brother of Pandava's father. So in one sense, Dhritarashtra is uncle. And at that time, actually, because Dhritarashtra was ruling on behalf of the Kuru. So once the war was finished and Pandava was born, so Krishna took them to the Dhritarashtra. And by then, Dhritarashtra actually had a realization that Krishna is Krishna to Bhagavan Swayam. He is none other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is Bhagavan. He knows past, present, future, everything. He knows everything. And then Dhritarashtra actually asked Krishna a few questions. He said, Krishna, and he said, Krishna, I don't think actually I have done any sinful activity in my life, throughout my life. Still, I've been through a lot of miseries right from my birth throughout. So I was actually born blind, and all my 100 sons were died. I don't think actually I had done anything sinful or anything that should have resulted in such a big miseries. Why did that happen to me? So Krishna actually smiles and then replies. He says, Dhritarashtra, 50 lifetime back, you were actually a hunter. And then in that lifetime, you actually went to a forest and then you climbed up a tree where there was a bird couple resting in their nest. And what you did, you took one of your arrow out, and with the tip, the sharp tip of the arrow, you poked the eyes of those bird couple. So because of that sinful activity, what you did 50 lifetime back, you actually became blind in this lifetime. So what you did 50 lifetime back, the result had to be born in this lifetime. He said, okay. And then what about my 100 sons? Why did they die? And then Krishna says, in this very same lifetime, because you were a hunter, you actually lit a fire to a certain region of forest. And within that region that got burned, so there were trees, and on that trees there were a lot of nests where the baby birds were resting, waiting for their parent birds to come and bring a food. But they could never get a food. Their parent birds couldn't see their baby birds because when the forest was burned, so were those little baby birds. So your sons actually died because of that reaction. Now, the Dhritarashtra said, it's okay, that's you have pretty much answered my question, but the thing is, why now? Why not in the pretty much same lifetime, and why not the lifetime immediately after that? Why after 50 lifetime back, after 50 lifetime? So Krishna actually started explaining the thing. He said in scriptures, basically it's mentioned there are 8.4 billion species of a life. So when we say species of a life, unlike the modern science, so the 8.4 billion species are actually categorized into the different categories. So the categories like, there are aquatics, so there are different fishes, different kinds of fishes. We go to the, what do we have on the cylinders? The aquarium, sea life aquarium. So we see actually the different species of fishes as well. So there are different species of aquatics. Maybe there are different plants within the water as well. And then we have a different non-movable objects like trees, plants. They are static, so they have a life as well. There are birds. There are insects. There are microorganisms. So the point is, a human being is one of the species in that as well. So he said, like, out of the 8.4 million species, human species is the highest form of life. And one has to have a lot of highest credit to even attain this form of life. Now, in the last 50 years, I don't know, actually probably I've been blessed to give in a human form, but who knows, actually I could be in the form of a dog or in the form of a hog. I could have any other life as well in any other body. But the Krishna says actually, because in the last 50 years, the reason we didn't get the reaction of these two simple acts were because in the last 50 years, he gave an opportunity to perform an activities, to perform the karmas, and that's basically goes back to today's class, the three actions what we're going to discuss. So he gave an opportunity actually to perform the karmas, basically the prescribed duties or a good karma in the simple language, or good activities in a life. Because of that, he could accumulate enough pious credit to get human form of a life. So first thing is actually he gave an opportunity so that he can get a human form of a life after 50 lifetime. And then once you have a lifetime, it takes a lot of pious credit to have one son. And in this lifetime, you have to have 100 sons. So a lot of pious credits actually were accumulated, and you were given an opportunity in the last 50 lifetimes. And once you had enough pious credits accumulated, only then I was in a stage to give you the reaction of those two sinful activities. So I hope actually I'll be able to make a point. The first was, as Krishna says, the intricacies are very, very difficult. We do not know why are we suffering, and this again goes back to the same point. A lot of people ask a very common question: why do bad things happen to the good people? I don't think I've done anything bad to anyone, but why are these miseries coming on to me? I don't think I've done anything bad. Why am I getting a loss in the properties? Why am I'm being stolen? Why I'm being fired from the job? Why I've been not being able to settle in the job? Why I don't have a positive relationship with my colleagues? Why don't I have a good relationship with my families? Why don't my kids listen to me? So all those things are basically the mysteries, but we don't know, because every result what we are getting is basically the reaction of our own activities. It sounds a little negative, but then again, once we are in the spiritual realm, a very beautiful prayer actually by Brahmaji in mad-bhāvaṁ, it comes at the end of the pastime where Brahmaji hides the different cows and the cowherd friends of Krishna, and then fast forward, I won't go into detail, but then again I'll stick to the point. Brahmaji actually makes a prayer to the Krishna, and that's a very, very motivating prayer for the devotees actually, especially somebody who is in the spiritual realm. How should we see the mysteries? How should we see? Because it sounds very negative. Because if you're doing a positive thing, if you're getting a positive result, but if we have done any sinful activity, probably we would get sinful, miseries. So it looks very negative. It looks very disheartening. So what Brahmaji says is a very beautiful prayer. Tatte anukampam susamikshmano bhunjan evatma kitam vipakam hirvakavabhubi vidanan namaste jive to yukti pade sadayabha. So I won't go in a very detail. Actually, the relevant text in this verse is the second line. It's a very beautiful line. It says bhunjan eva atma kirtam vipakam. Bhunjan means basically whatever the miseries, whatever the trials, whatever the tribulations are coming in my life, Bhunjan, Ev, he, Atma, self, by me, Kritam, done, Vipakam, results. So basically what does it mean is, whatever the miseries, whatever the trials, whatever the tribulations are coming into my life, nobody else is responsible for that. I myself is responsible, because what I'm getting is nothing, is nobody's results of, I'm not getting the reaction of the results of anybody's karma. These are the results of my own activities, which I have done either in this lifetime or in the past lifetimes. So how can I blame someone else as well? But then the beautiful thing is the first line. Tatte anukampam. Anukampam means basically causeless mercy. So basically what Brahma is saying is, and it's a very highest entity, is a very intelligent living entity. The whole body of Brahma is made of intelligence, is a very subtle living entity. So what basically he says is it's your causeless mercy, although I'm actually getting these miseries, as a result of my own past sinful acts, my past sinful activities. However, because of you, I'm actually getting a token. I'm getting a very small token. So what does it mean, token is, suppose in one of my past lifetime, I was driving a car and I ran over a dog. Dog died. The reaction to that activity would probably have been that in one of the lifetime, probably I would have to become a dog or I would have to become one of the animals and I have to be run over by some car. But because Krishna says, once you come into the bhakti, I take you. Name bhaktya vinashyati. Sorry, name bhaktya pranashyati. What Krishna says, my devotee never perishes. I look after him. I take everything of their reaction. So basically, what does it mean is because probably I will have to get the same reaction. I will have to get run over by some car. Probably I was hit by some vehicle while I was going to the office, and all I got was just a fracture in my arm. So at that point of time, actually, it might appear we might feel upset because we see from that perspective, because I was just crossing the Southern Cross station, I was coming out from the Southern Cross station, I was just waiting for the tram, and somebody didn't even see and just hit some car actually hit my arm, and I got a fracture. But then again, we need to see, I was destined to have that happen because that was a reaction of the activity which I had done in one of the past lifetime. So probably in one of the lifetime, if I would have killed a dog, but because I'm not saying actually I'm even a devotee, but I'm trying to be a devotee. But again, because once you take a shelter of the Lord, once you start walking onto the spiritual life, tatte anukampam. So basically, what happens is that reaction that becomes the magnitude of the reaction basically becomes quite small. So this is a very important point actually why Krishna is saying the intricacies of the activities or karmas are very, very difficult to understand, very difficult to understand. And then again, why it is very important to understand the activities what we do, because we do activities every day in and day out. It is also said in one of the Upanishad, again one of the scriptures, very popular verse 5 from the Upanishad that says, Ahara nidra bhay maithunam cha samanyam ekati pashudhi karanam dharmo hi sama dharmo hi vishe dharmo hi tesham adhiko vishesho dharme nina pashudhi samana. So basically what does it mean is sleeping, eating, ahara nidra, by defending or basically working hard, and maithunam, basically procreation, creating a child. So these four activities are actually common. Samanyam etati pashudhi naranam. So basically these four activities are common between the animals and the humans. Animals also sleep, animals also eat, animals also procreate, dogs, cats, even the organism which we cannot see. I'm not basically from biology student, but again, the invisible microorganisms or fungi, they also procreate. So the point is actually, so these four things are common between man and animal. So what is special about human beings then? Like I said, humans are one of the 8.4 million species. If everybody in 8.4 million species are doing these four things, so what separates human? When Krishna says, you need to be careful, you are in a human form of life. What is so special about the human form of life? The answer actually comes in the third line. Dharmo hi tesham adhiko vishesho. Vishesho means special. Dharma means religion or spiritual life. So the inquiry about the spiritual life, living a spiritual life, inquiring about yourself, who are you, where you have come from, whatever you are doing in your life, where does it go to? What would be the reaction? Is the activity what I'm doing, is that a cause of a bondage, or is that a cause of liberation? So basically the spiritual life or the religion is a special quality because humans have Krishna, God has given an intelligence to inquire, that where you can make decisions to make your consciousness either spiritual or material in a very simple words. So that's a special quality. However, the rest of the 8.4 million species in a different forms, they do not have this. Blessing, I would say, because they act on intuition. They act actually on intuition and not intelligence. Now, another one example, very important example, actually is being said is, and look how degraded the mentality. Again, although Krishna has given us intelligence, but how degraded the human actually have become. So, just for the sake of example, imagine I was carrying a bag of rice. Somebody was carrying a bag of, or a truck was carrying a bag of rice, and the truck was overloaded, imagine, and then one of the bag of the rice just fell down. And there's a rice actually all over the road. Now, when the bird see that grains or rice, just say one example for an argument, when the birds see those grains lying on the road, what they do is basically they eat what they need, and they will carry whatever they could carry in their beak for their offsprings. That's it. They don't need anything more than that. Because they act on the intuition. Had there been a human seeing a bag of a rice or a bag of a grain lying on the road, what we would have expected? He would carry the entire bag home. All the stomach is this, necessity is this, with offsprings, with their children, the requirement is this, but he actually picked up and carried the entire bag. So the point I'm trying to make is this, it's a negative example, it's a negative connotation of how, although we have been blessed with the intelligence by Krishna, but how we are misusing this intelligence. But this intuition, this intelligence is not available in the rest of the 8.4 million species. So it's very, very important actually that we need to understand what kind of activities we should do. It's very, very important actually. So now moving on to the second part of the verse is, Krishna actually mentioned that it's very difficult to understand the intricacies, and then it's very difficult to even understand the different activities. And he's talking about the three words, Karmā, Vīkarmā, and Akarmā. So let's discuss one by one what are these activities. So the first activity what he is telling is basically called Karmā, just a simple Karmā, word Karmā. So Karmā actually basically, it has a different connotations. Unlike English language or any other language, the meanings of the words in Sanskrit are not eternally frozen. It has a different meaning in different contexts. The reason being, Sanskrit is an original language. It has a wider scope, and all other subsequent languages or the contemporary languages are actually were actually evolved quite later in their life. So we can't expect actually the big subset to have to have 1:1 mapping for all the words in different languages. So anyways, so Karmā in simple languages basically means activity. That's it. But here in terms of the scriptures, what does Karmā means is So Karmā actually means authorized activities or the prescribed duties, which are prescribed duties where either they are authorized activities or they are prescribed duties that we should do. Prescribed where? Prescribed in the scriptures, prescribed in the Vedas. So any activities which are described in the scriptures or in the Vedas, when we do those activities, they are called karmas. Again, going forward, we all know, we all have studied, we must have heard actually our children reading some of the laws and physics, very famous Newton's law. Every action has equal and opposite reaction. So again, we'll use the same context in today's verse as well. Because we are talking about activities or actions, it will definitely have a reaction as well. And then again, depending upon what kind of activity, we'll have a dependent reaction, and then again, it will either cause a bondage or liberation. So when we say actually the karmas are those activities which are authorized in the scriptures, why scriptures? Why scriptures? Why Vedas? Why? Why are we bringing? Krishna, he is the father of a dharma. I mean, why is actually, when the father of the Dharma is present, why is he actually referring us back to follow the scriptures? Why? So basically, to understand this point is, if we need to know who is the father of a child, who in this world is the best person to tell who is the father of a child. There are two ways actually, because we are so sophisticated, modern, sophisticated and highly educated modern person. We believe in a lot of modern science, philosophy, genes, and because these days we have things like where we can genetically have a blood test where we can identify, if not actually the person, but at least we can find out the lineage of that child belongs to. But anyways, right, the point is actually, how do we know? So if we use our brain, now it's been said, if every man on this earth present is being tested for the blood, to identify, why? Just to identify, just to know who is the father of this child. If he actually goes through this our so-called advanced science, so-called in scripture is called aroha. Aroha means basically ascending process. If we do this thing, so science says it will at least take 1,000 years to match the gene of that child to find that man. Is it even possible actually, because the life in Kali is expected, I mean ordinarily it's supposed to be 100 years, but then again who lives 100 years? And then again after 1,000, I mean at the end of the 1,000 years, that person will have taken probably like 10 different births as well. So it's not the point I'm trying to make is, it's not intelligent approach. So who can actually tell who the father of this child is? Mother. Simple. Because mother knows how did she get, because the seed is given to a mother, and then mother is responsible to keep and responsible for upbringing or giving a body to that seed and bear the child in the womb so that the child actually can come out after 9 months. So mother knows who is the person who was given the seed. Similarly, actually the acharyas or the great saints says, scriptures or the Vedas is our mother. If we need to know who the father is, who's the supreme father, how to live a spiritual life, how to live an ethical life, we actually need to follow the scriptures. And that's why Krishna is saying so he's actually talking about one of the activities which is called karma. So karma basically means authorized activities or prescribed duties which are mentioned in the scriptures. So some of the example actually could be like feeding the poor, performing strategies, performing sacrifices, and then again at the same time actually we need to inculcate the subtle qualities as well. Mad-bhāvaṁ, these are the qualities, 20 qualities which Krishna mentions in chapter 13. So basically means we need to be honest, we need to be humble, we need to be prideless, we need to be tolerant. So these qualities. So basically that's karma. So now moving on to the next one is Vīkarmā. So V basically means opposite. So what does it mean Vīkarmā is? So Vīkarmās are those activities which are unauthorized by the scripture. So basically scriptures is on a holistic perspective. If we have to talk about the Vedas, they actually talk about nivritti or pravritti. Nivritti basically means do's. Because when we go to a doctor for some ailment, and then he'll say, okay, you will have these medicines, so do this, but at the same time, don't do this as well. If I'm stuck in a jungle or I'm doing a camping with my family, and I need to get a bonfire. So I've read actually if you scrub a stone, probably it will create a spark, and then probably you can put a fire to some of the twigs. Once you got a spark, then you can burn and then you can come up with a bonfire. So the point is actually the activity of rubbing the stones is basically to create a fire. But at the same time, if somebody is pouring water on that, then I will not have a desired result. So it's important actually to have a nivritti and pravritti, to have both do's and don'ts as well. So basically, in simple language, in today's context is, karmas are basically those activities which are prescribed that you should do them. But at the same time, the Vīkarmās are those activities which scripture says do not do them. Do not do them. They are prohibited, they are restricted. They will entangle you into material world. So some of the examples of this Vīkarmā, just to try to understand, is meat eating, playing gamble, intoxicating, drinking alcohol, smoking, having illicit relationships with the different partners, or outside marriage. So these are some of the examples of the Vīkarmā. So Vīkarmās are basically those activities which have been asked in the Vedas not to do them. Or people still they do because they don't believe in the scriptures. So because they don't believe in the scriptures, so they don't know what has been prescribed. Because they do not know what has been prescribed. So what will happen? They will concoct. And this is what actually is happening in India. I'm sorry to say, there are so many gurus, there are so many babas, there are so many things coming up. They are concocting their own philosophies. I mean, if somebody has to even ask, actually, due respect to everyone, not to comment on anyone, everybody has their own gurus and babas. But then again, what is I think the key part is we need to understand what is their philosophy and how is that philosophy connected. How is it, like, I think one of the words I use is arubha, and then there is another word avroha. Sorry. So avroha is basically ascending process. Ascending process means, what in simple project management terms, what we call is sometimes when the project kicks off, we call a bottom-up approach, which is basically the ascending process, and then we have another approach which is called a top-down approach. So in top-down approach, business tell, okay, we need to do this thing. So these are the 4 objectives of the business that we need to achieve. Then business analysts, project manager, and different stakeholders, they start working on it and they start breaking down. So okay, so we have 5 deliverables, and then we break it down into the work breakdown structure. We further break down that major chunk into the smaller chunk. So they keep on breaking down the work to the stage where the work can be, it's basically the language of project management, sorry about that, but then again, they break down the requirement to the point where the work that need to be done by the staff, by the developers, by the testers, by the engineers, to the stage where it can be 2 things. Clearly estimated in terms of the efforts, like how long would that take, 5 hours, 6 hours, 10 hours, and how much work needs to be done in terms of the efforts and in terms of the time. So basically, if we start speculating and then use our own concocted ideas, we will never be able to understand. So it's better actually we follow the scriptures that have been mentioned in there. So that's basically the Vīkarmā. The third action which Krishna actually talks about is Akarmā. Now, before I jump onto this point, please understand one point here. Both Karmā and Vīkarmā, or the people who perform the Karmā and the Vīkarmā, they have the same goal. When I say they have the same goal, what is the goal? The goal, every action has a reaction, so they have the same expected reaction, whether they are performing the Karmās or Vīkarmās. So the goal is basically to improvise the standard of the living, improvise the standard of sense gratification. I want to have a better job, I want to have a better salary, so that I can have a good house, probably once we have a good house, I want to have a car. If I have a car, I want to have a European car. If I have enough money, actually, if I have enough bank balance, I need to start investing into the investment property. If I have one investment property, I want to have a second investment property, and so forth. So the point is basically, the end goal is to improvise the standard. How can I enjoy more? How can I bring my family to enjoy more? How can I have best of the holidays in the US or wherever actually with my family, or how can I live my life lavishly in a very simple language? If the end goal is same, then what is the difference? So the difference is how you achieve that goal. So Karmis basically follow the right way, the ethical way, the good way actually. They follow, okay, we'll try to improvise the lifestyle, we'll try to earn the money, but in a way, it's been mentioned, it's been described in the scriptures, so we'll follow the scriptures. However, the second category, which is a Vīkarmā, so they are those people who say, we don't believe in scripture, we don't believe in a God actually, we'll come up with our own philosophy. So this is where they concoct, they think, they start manufacturing their own ideologies. But they don't understand, by doing the Vīkarmā, which is from the Jnana Chakshu or Shastra Chakshu in English basically means spiritual vision, from that perspective they don't understand. although they are doing so-called, they have manufactured their so-called concocted ideology, but it's forbidden in scriptures. They have been asked not to do them. Not to do them. Why? Because by doing them, although karmis are doing the same thing as karmis are following the scripture, they are attaining the same goal, but they are actually accumulating the pious credits. However, the Vīkarmīs, because they are against the scriptures, they will accumulate miseries. So in simple languages, karmis is basically the ones who does pious, which is called karma, and then Vīkarmīs are those who does the things by but the karmis are karma and Vīkarmīs are karmas. So if the end goal for both of these section of people, karmis and Vīkarmīs, is same, then where does the third karma sit, Akarmā? Now the word Akarmā, so in Sanskrit, basically, when you prefix a, it becomes opposite of the actual word. So karma we've already studied. Karma is basically in simple English languages to perform an activity, to do an activity. So Akarmā basically means not to do an activity, not to do anything. Basically in simple word, inaction, not to do anything. And this is what actually the Arjuna was thinking initially when he requested Krishna to bring his chariot in the middle of the two armies so that he can see all those people who have gathered on the battlefield to fight against him. And when he saw his dearmost grandfathers, his teachers, his cousins, his uncles, and then he got compassionate. And then what he said is, Gandhivam Saṁśayaḥ hastat. The name of Arjuna's bow is called Gandhiva. It's a very powerful weapon. He's saying, Gandhiva Saṁśayaḥ, slipping, hastat, from my hand. When I see my own kinsman, whom I'm expected to kill in this war, I'm becoming fearful, and in that state, my weapon is slipping out of my hand. Now imagine a warrior or soldier actually is being expected to go to the war, to the front, and he's standing probably against anti-social elements or terrorists or whatever actually, and the weapon, the gun, whatever they have in their hand, is slipping out of the hand. So what kind of a state that is? It is. So Arjuna is saying that Gandhiva is slipping out of my hand. So what should I do? So it's better actually I do not kill them. So if I don't kill them, what I will do is I will go away from this battlefield. I leave this battlefield and I'll go to the jungle. I'll go to the forest. And in that forest, I'll live a life of a renunciate. And I would better actually live by begging alms happily rather than killing my own kinsmen. So this is what the initially the Arjuna's mentality was. And this is what basically what Akarmā. He said, I will not do karmas, I will not do Vīkarmā, I will do Akarmā. Means I will not do anything at all. Like in Hindi says, na bajega baans, na rahega baans, na bajegi bansuri. So basically what does it mean is if there is no bamboo, then there is no opportunity to make the flute out of the bamboo. Now because there is no bamboo, there is no flute, so people will not get disturbed by the noise or the sweet music coming out of the flute. So this is what the ancient understanding of the Arjuna was. But Krishna turned the entire situation around in 45 minutes after speaking Bhagavad Gita. Entire situation. Because Arjuna was thinking that I will do inaction from the bodily perspective. Because he said, and that's what the very first lesson which Krishna taught is, look, you are not this body, you are soul. So when you are talking about your kinsmen, your teacher, your uncles, your friends, you are actually speaking in terms of these bodily relationships. Now because you have invested so much of emotion in these bodily relationships, the very much reason to lose them by killing them and not being able to enjoy, even if I win the entire kingdom of Indraprastha, whom I would enjoy that. So I don't want to do it. Now after Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita, whole situation was turned around, and Arjuna literally understood the meaning of Akarmā. So please just bear with me for a few more minutes, because this is a very important point to understand what is Akarmā. So the Akarmā, like I mentioned, in Sanskrit, the words are not eternally frozen. Different words have different meanings in different contexts. So one of the meaning of the Akarmā is definitely inaction, which is opposite of karma. But then again, there is another meaning. Another meaning of Akarmā is doing an activity without attachment. Doing an activity without attachment. So basically, what does it mean? One does follows the prescribed duties. One does those activities which are being authorized in the scriptures. However, they are not attached to the results of those activities. And like I said, and even from the material perspective, you must have heard every action, Newton's law, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Now we need to understand this, although it's a material law, but again, because we have a material buddhi, we have a material intelligence, even if we see from this principle, when we make someone responsible, or when we think someone responsible of doing an activity, we need to understand this principle. That person becomes wholly and solely responsible for the results of it as well. So if I think I am the doer of this activity, I'm sorry to say that whether the activity is a success or a failure, the result of that activity will come out to me as well. Now, it will come either in the form of happiness or it will come in the form of miseries. But again, the point is we need to understand whether it's a karma or a vikarma. Both are binding. Both are binding. Binding because it keep us in this material world, and we keep on moving in the cycle of a birth, death, old age, and disease. So basically, Akarmā is those activities which are sanctioned in the scriptures, but then again, we do those activities without an attachment. So we keep someone in the center. Like I said, if you think I'm the doer, then I become entitled to the reaction of those activities. So if we bring someone else in that person, means although superficially I'm doing the same thing. Two people are going to the office. They are sitting next to each other. They're doing exactly the same work. They're getting exactly the same salary. One is a devotee, one is a non-devotee. They're doing the same thing. But although one person is doing an activity, devotee is doing the same activity, but the devotee is not actually entitled to the reaction which would come by doing those duties which he has been requested, which he has been asked to perform at the work. So what does it mean? Is coming to the point straight away, because we already hit the time 6 o'clock. So in Akarmā, we actually do the activities for the Lord, for the Krishna. Because Krishna, the last instruction in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Sarva dharman parityajya mame ekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarvapebhyo mokshasyami ma shucha. Basically what he's saying is, do not worry about all your sinful activities or sinful reaction and the pious activities as well. In fact, the sinful and the good activities, do not even worry about the good activities, the results of the good activities as well. Aham tvam, I will liberate you, I will deliver you, I will forgive you from all your sinful reactions. Ma shucha, do not fear about this. So Krishna is very clearly saying this. So basically, the devotee of the Lord actually works for the Lord. He doesn't do anything different, but he does everything for the Lord. Like I said, I'm a grihastha, I have a family, I have a daughter. So I go to the office, everything I'm doing the same thing which normal people does. But the only thing is, the reason for doing the activities are different. We keep the Lord in the center, we're doing the job, we're doing whatever we do, we cook for the Lord, we have best of the feast, we do best of we do the best of the cookings as well. But then again, we serve those cookings to the Lord first, and then once we have offered to the Lord, and again, everything is like interrelated, because what actually happens is in karma, like I said, these activities are prescribed duties, means these activities are sanctioned to do, which are mentioned in the scriptures. So these are activities which have been sanctioned. But again, even the sanctioned activities will result in a bondage. However, in Akarmā, because the center is not me, if it's not me, but because I'm doing an activity, I will have a reaction as well. because it's not me, it's someone else. So that someone else become the responsible for the results of that activity as well. So if we say, I'm doing anything and everything for the Lord, obviously not nonsensical things. If I'm killing an animal, if I'm being violent, I'm saying I'm doing it on the sake of the Lord. I mean, that's nonsense. But then again, if in the right consciousness, if you're doing any activities and we make Lord responsible for that activity, then Lord will, what will happen is, although we are doing the sanctioned activities, that activity will become sanctified. What does that mean, sanctified? Sanctified means, in the last chapter of 18, very important book, I mean, Bhagavad Gita itself is a book of philosophy. Very beautiful verse actually Krishna says is, I don't remember the verse, but then I'll stick to the context. Krishna says, any activity we do in this world, any activity we do in this world is actually covered by a fault. And he gives an analogy of a fire. Whenever there is a fire, it doesn't matter how small it is, whether it's a spark or a big fire or whatever, actually, wherever there is a fire, there would be a smoke. It's an eternal, it's a natural property of a fire. So similarly, any activity, whatever we do, it will have a fault. If it will have a fault, it will have a sinful reactions, then why am I responsible? Because I'm actually cooking for the Lord and I'm actually following the same activity which has been sanctioned in the scriptures by offering all my doings, all my karmas, all my activities, all my food, or whatever I'm doing with my job or whatever, if I'm serving my family, I am sanctifying the reactions which might knowingly or unknowingly I might have committed. So, just to summarize actually, so there are like 3 types of karmas we discussed, karmas, vīkarmās, and akarmās. Karmas are basically the sanctioned activities, vīkarmās are non-sanctioned activities, and akarmās are the activities, although we do the sanctioned activities, but we do them without attachment. Just one last very important point, I'm sure most of the people will have this as a question, because this is what our natural tendency is. That, okay, we understand we don't do Vīkarmā, which is a sinful activity, but why are you stopping us from doing the good karmas? I want to live a happy life, good life. I want to earn money. What's the point? What's the problem in that? I'm not disturbing anyone. I expect no one to disturb me. I'm living a happy, peaceful life, enough bank balance. What's the problem in that? What's the problem in that? The problem in that is because, like I said, karma is a punya karma. So karma is basically means punya karma. So when we do punya karma, we actually get punya results. It's like a bank balance. Now, once have enough accumulated those punya karmas, the result in the scriptures, even in the Bhagavad Gita says, one is elevated to the heavenly planets. So there are 14 planetary systems, I won't go into detail, but then again, once you have accumulated enough karmas, you are actually elevated to the heavenly planets. Now, it's being said, there are like the kind of opulence which are present on these heavenly planets is like more than 1,000 times. In fact, the most beautiful, probably the woman on the earth called Miss World or Miss Universe actually. So if we multiply 1,000 times of their beauty, is the beauty of the normal beauty of a woman which live on these heavenly planets. And even amongst them, there are apsaras and henceforth. So I won't go into detail. This is just to give a context that the life in these heavenly planets is very, very opulent, and people live there for a long time. So what's the problem actually doing a good karmas and living and going to the heaven, and then living such a good life? So I'll give a small analogy. Like it's like I've worked very hard for a company. So my company says, "Vīkarmā, you have done a very good job. So what I'll do is we'll give you a credit card, and we'll top up this credit card with $10,000. Go with your family and have a vacation. So we'll also make you off from the work for 1 month." So what I do is I book a holiday to the US, I book the rest of the hotel, and I check into the hotel. So I've got a 10,000 credit card, sorry, and I use that credit card to book the hotels, and I'm spending the credit card on the lavish lifestyle and entertainment, food, and I'm doing all kind of nonsense for the sense gratification. But as I'm utilizing my credit card, as I'm enjoying, and my family is enjoying actually, one thing is happening. What's happening? The credit in the credit card is becoming low. So it comes to the point actually when the credit card is zero, and the next morning I get a knock on the door in my hotel room, and they say, "Sir, sorry about that, your credit card doesn't have any more credit. Unless you have another credit card or enough money, we can't let you and your family stay within this hotel." Now, because I am so used to of living such an opulent life, company gave me 10,000 pounds, I have the rest of the life. I said, no, I don't want to move it. And I start thinking, I become illusion that this is my life. This opulence is my life. They said, no, sorry sir, you cannot continue to live here. And if I try to get into the altercation, what they would do is, they will throw my luggage out of the hotel, and they will throw me out as well. This is exactly what happens. In Bhagavad Gita chapter 7, Krishna says, Shine punne vritti lo vishanti. Shine means, punne means when your punne karma, when your pious activities, the pious credits which you have accumulated by being so-called good person, good people, by good karmas, I do not say anything to anyone, I live peaceful life. So those pious credits which had made me elevated to the heavenly planets, as long as I had, like a credit card, as long as I have those pious credits, I'm entitled to live there. And once those pious credits are over, literally it's being said in the Bhagavad Gita in chapter 11, you are actually thrown out. You're not even being told sorry, you're not given even a notice of warning, sir, your pious credits are getting over, so start moving out. So the point I'm trying to make is, even people endeavor to make a good activities to go to the high destination, to live opulent life in the heavenly planets. The point is, even that place is not permanent, it's temporary place. We want to go to the we want to go to the place, permanent place, where yat gatva na nivartante, means once you are born there, having born there, we don't want to come there. The goal of the devotee is never to go into the womb of any other mother. Not specifically in the form of a human, but I don't want to go into the womb of even in the womb of any animal as well, because I want to get liberated from this material world. There are so many mysteries here. So anyway, so I'll stop the class. Thank you very much for patiently listening to me. So I'll open it up. For example, you're already up. I'll quickly take probably one question, if anyone have, and then please continue to stay in the class, because Anindra Prabhu and Vishnu Vamsa Prabhu will continue to have a japa session, very peaceful session. And again, mind it, this is one of the Akarmā. Akarmā is basically direct service, direct activity to the Lord. So basically, Prabhu will take it. I'll open it up. Does anyone have any questions, corrections? Please. Thank you very much. So basically, Mataji is asking, we discussed about the self-realization, so she wants to know what's the outcome of the self-realization. Look, self-realization basically means, in a very simple language, identifying yourself. Just to, I'm sure when you go to the school and then you work with the different people, just randomly ask, how many of your friends even have an understanding that they are not this body, they are soul? I would expect probably majority of them will not even have an answer to this question. So in simple language, at your age, I would say self-realization is basically that's the very first verse of the Vedanta Sutra. Now is the time to inquire. Inquire what? Who am I? So self-realization means understanding who am I? Am I this body? Today I'm wearing this cream color kurta. Tomorrow I might be wearing a blue color kurta as well. So you will not call me, hey, white color kurta man, hey, red color kurta man, because my identity is not defined by this cloth. Similarly, my body is a garment. So the true identity is sitting inside, which is a soul. That is understanding that we are a soul, and this body is a garment, and once this garment is no longer required or have an energy, we'll move on to the next garment. I would not expect anybody to move on to the next garment and straight go to the Krishna. But again, having this knowledge is called self-realization, and that's the first step towards, because once you identify who are you, only then you can start working in the direction who is the God. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Arjun Krishna Samvad ki jai, mad-bhāvaṁ ki jai, oh Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. I'll give the microphone to Vishnu. Please thank you.
So we'll do chanting now, jap, on these. So if you don't have bead, please raise your hand so we can pass on malas. So all of us, we have chanting beads, right? So when we chant, this finger you don't touch to beads. So this finger don't touch to chanting mala, and use your this finger, middle finger, use your thumb to hold the mala. This bead, the middle bead, don't say any mantra on it. This is 109th bead, known as Sumedha bead. So we don't say any mantra on this one. You start chanting here or here. So any of these beads you can start chanting from. So you hold like this, and on every bead you repeat the Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So one bead, one mantra. Then we repeat again Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Go to the second bead. So we'll do 108 times this mantra. So when you are saying the mantra, say it a little louder, because that way mantra goes into our ears. So we'll do a little louder chanting. So starting from the first beat, there is a prayer we'll do before chanting, which you can repeat after me. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shri